Personality, NLP, and Astrology case study for Natalie Ascendant, Rohini Taurus. Natalie's Ascendant lies in Rohini, within the sign of Taurus, a combination that shapes her personality through sensual depth, creative stability, and grounded charisma. Taurus brings a Venusian lens to the way she sees and moves through life. Pleasure-driven yet anchored, with a preference for beauty, comfort, and harmony. Rohini, ruled by the moon, adds a signature of allure, receptivity, and magnetic emotional presence. This is someone who doesn't need to push to be seen. Her presence draws in rather than reaches out. She likely moves with natural grace and a steady rhythm, guided by emotional intelligence and aesthetic refinement. This rising placement suggests that Natalie is deeply attuned to both what feels good and what holds value. She may instinctively surround herself with environments that nurture her senses. Sound, texture, taste, color, all woven into how she finds equilibrium. Rohini brings a quality of nurturing, not necessarily in a maternal way, but in a curatorial one. She likely has a gift for making things beautiful, whether in her home, her words, or her presence. Others might perceive her as soft or slow to open, but behind that gentleness is an iron resolve when it comes to protecting what matters. From an NLP perspective, Natalie shows strong kinesthetic and visual processing patterns. She learns and chooses based on how things feel, both emotionally and physically, but also pays close attention to appearance, harmony, and flow. Aesthetics are not superficial for her. They are a vital part of her perception and emotional regulation. Her connection to space, sensation, and form is profound. If a situation, person, or place feels off, she knows it in her body long before she can articulate it. Her chunking style is likely specific, especially when it comes to emotional nuance, beauty, and interpersonal connection. She notices details, small shifts in tone, subtle body language, the way a room is arranged, or the emotional microtextures in conversation. This helps her connect deeply and read between the lines, but may also lead to sensitivity overload if environments are harsh or overstimulating. She prefers clarity and softness over messiness and chaos, even in emotional dialogue. Natalie's attention filter is gently others-oriented, especially in relational or aesthetic contexts. With Taurus rising and Rohini's lunar influence, she's deeply aware of how her presence affects others and likely aims to create calm, pleasing experiences. However, she also has enough internal strength to prioritize her comfort when needed. Her self-worth is tied to how aligned her external life feels with her internal values, not how loudly others affirm her. Her motivation direction leans towards. She's drawn to comfort, beauty, emotional consistency, and environments that reflect her values. However, Rohini can also develop a healthy away-from filter, especially when boundaries are crossed or when emotional dissonance becomes too great. Her decisions are made by weighing both what draws her forward and what disturbs her sense of equilibrium. She won't always move quickly, but when she does move, it's with deliberate clarity. Operationally, Natalie works best in proximity environments. She enjoys meaningful connection, close partnerships, small teams, or intimate social dynamics, but still requires space to breathe. Too much pressure or emotional chaos will cause her to retreat into her inner sanctuary. Her time experience likely leans in time. She's present, emotionally immersed, and may move through life by feeling each moment fully rather than over-planning. Her rhythm is her power. Her values are her compass. And her presence, calm, curated, and grounded, is often her greatest gift. First house, Taurus, Jupiter in Mrigashira, Rahu. Natalie's first house, which governs the body, personality, psyche, and the lens through which all life is experienced, holds both Jupiter in Mrigashira and Rahu in Rohini, layering her Taurus ascendant with a powerful blend of intellectual curiosity, aesthetic refinement, and karmic intensity. The first house is not just how she appears, it's the operating system of her entire chart. With Jupiter, the planet of wisdom, expansion, and spiritual ethics, conjoined with Rahu, the node of desire, obsession, and karmic acceleration, Natalie's identity is a dance between high-minded ideals and a deep hunger to embody more, experience more, be more. Mrigashira, ruled by Mars, brings a searching, questioning, and emotionally intelligent tone to Jupiter's expression. This nakshatra is marked by restlessness and refinement, an elegant hunger for truth, beauty, and inner security. Jupiter here suggests Natalie has a gentle but alert mental presence, always seeking emotional resonance, meaningful knowledge, or something just beyond reach. She's likely a lifelong learner, but one who's selective, following her curiosity with softness rather than force. Her persona carries a quietly refined intelligence, and others may feel both comforted and intrigued by her. Rahu in Rohini intensifies her physical and emotional magnetism. Rohini, ruled by the moon, is the most sensual of the nakshatras. It brings grace, receptivity, and a powerful draw. Rahu here makes her captivating, possibly without trying. There's a karmic pull to her aura, something others are fascinated by, even if they can't explain it. But this placement also brings a strong inner hunger for emotional fulfillment, aesthetic satisfaction, or bodily comfort, sometimes leading to over-attachment to beauty, attention, or emotional validation. When aligned, it's exquisite. When unbalanced, it may lead to craving what cannot truly satisfy. From an NLP perspective, this combination reveals a high-functioning blend of auditory-digital, kinesthetic, and visual processing. Jupiter in Mrigashira gives Natalie the drive to understand. She seeks logic, meaning, and pattern. Rahu in Rohini makes her highly responsive to how things feel and look, emotionally and physically. She likely forms impressions quickly and deeply, using sensation, pattern recognition, and aesthetic resonance as her filters. She may not always speak her thoughts immediately, but her internal clarity is vivid, rhythmic, and emotionally attuned. Her chunking style, in the first house, is specific, especially when it comes to self-perception, physical presentation, and emotional calibration. She likely notices subtle shifts in her own energy and environment, refining how she shows up accordingly. However, Jupiter brings a broader philosophical outlook, so while she may register details, she interprets them through a larger emotional or ethical framework. This makes her both detail-aware and meaning-driven, sensitive without being lost in sensitivity. Natalie's attention filter is a nuanced blend of self and others. Jupiter offers internal referencing. She trusts her instincts and quiet sense of rightness. Rahu, on the other hand, can draw her outward, seeking approval, attention, or confirmation. This creates a dynamic where she oscillates between what feels true to me and how am I being received. Over time, with maturity, Jupiter helps her stabilize this, anchoring her identity in wisdom rather than validation. Her motivation direction in the first is strongly towards. Rahu pulls her into growth, beauty, embodiment, and self-actualization, often through tangible experience. Jupiter tempers this with discernment. She doesn't just want more, she wants what's meaningful. Still, this mix can make her aspirational, seeking to evolve her identity again and again until it truly reflects the richness she holds within. Altogether, Jupiter in Mrigashira and Rahu in Rohini in Natalie's first house give her a magnetic, emotionally alert, and quietly expansive presence. She moves through the world with grace and self-awareness, yet always feels there's more to refine, discover, and become. Her NLP patterns point to someone who feels deeply, thinks broadly, and seeks beauty and meaning in everything, especially within herself. Third house, Cancer. Natalie's third house, the domain of communication, motivation, self-expression, siblings, skills, and daily willpower, is in Cancer, with the sun placed in Ashlesha, a nakshatra known for psychic perception, emotional intelligence, and hypnotic subtlety. Cancer here infuses her everyday thoughts, actions, and interactions with sensitivity, emotional tone, and intuitive nuance. With the sun, planet of identity, leadership, and personal light, placed in this emotionally coiled space, Natalie's expression is intensely felt and deeply strategic. She may not speak often or loudly, but when she does, it lands with impact. Ashlesha, ruled by Mercury, carries the energy of the serpent, observant, psychologically deep, and protective of its emotional terrain. The sun here gives Natalie a powerful but discreet communicative presence. Her words are rarely wasted. She may speak with a low, rhythmic cadence, a controlled tone, or a kind of quiet authority that others feel more than they consciously register. There's often more going on beneath the surface. Her voice, gaze, and timing all carry layers of emotional weight. She can be magnetic in one-on-one conversations and may have a gift for persuasion or emotional reading. From an NLP perspective, This placement reflects a strong auditory-digital and kinesthetic processing blend. Natalie's mind is sharp and analytical, but her decisions are filtered through how something feels emotionally or energetically. She listens deeply, not just to words, but to tone, silence, and subtext. Her language may be minimal but precise, and she likely memorizes or internalizes ideas through rhythm, emotional charge, and associative memory rather than rote logic. Emotional coherence matters more to her than intellectual impressiveness. Her chunking style in communication is mostly specific, especially when emotionally engaged. She may focus in on tone, timing, or subtle inconsistencies in language. She notices micro shifts and may have a photographic or sensory memory when it comes to important conversations. However, the sun's presence also gives her access to general chunking when speaking about identity, purpose, or insight. She can shift into big picture mode, often unexpectedly, delivering truths that feel distilled and resonant. Natalie's attention filter in communication leans internal, especially with the sun involved. She says what feels right to her, not necessarily what she thinks others want to hear. While she's intuitive and perceptive, she doesn't betray her core for the sake of external affirmation. Her confidence may be quiet, but it is rooted in emotional knowing. She trusts her inner timing and expressive style, even if it doesn't follow conventional norms. Her motivation direction here is subtly away from, shaped by Ashlesha's protective instincts. She often speaks, moves, or acts to guard her inner space, avoiding emotional exposure, manipulation, or chaotic environments. But the sun reorients her gently toward expression. When she feels safe and aligned, she steps forward, not to perform, but to radiate truth. She may have a core belief that words matter deeply and should not be wasted or misused. Altogether, the sun in Ashlesha in Natalie's Cancer third house gives her a deeply resonant voice, emotionally strategic, perceptively sharp, and selectively radiant. Her NLP traits show someone who feels what she says, listens with her whole body, and communicates with surgical emotional precision. She doesn't need a platform. She is the message, delivered through stillness, rhythm, and well-placed insight. Fourth house, Leo, Mercury in Maga, Venus in Purva Falguni. Natalie's fourth house, the domain of home, emotional foundation, inner life, and maternal imprint, lies in Leo, with Mercury in Maga and Venus in Purva Falguni. This combination imbues her emotional world with elegance, expressive intelligence, and a sense of quiet regality. Leo brings a noble, dignified quality to the private self, suggesting Natalie's inner world is rich, curated, and self-aware. With Mercury, thought speech, in Maga and Venus, affection, desire, in Purva Falguni, she likely experiences home as both a sacred stage and a private sanctuary, a place where heart, aesthetics, and identity find structure and shine. Mercury in Maga gives her a mental signature rooted in ancestral memory, structure, and refined communication. Maga, ruled by Ketu, is concerned with legacy, tradition, and invisible authority. Natalie's thoughts and inner dialogues are likely shaped by a need to honor what's come before, her family line, inner code, or the emotional wisdom she's inherited. She likely processes emotions by reflecting, naming, and organizing them into something coherent. She may not be overtly expressive about her feelings, but her mind is always making meaning from them, sorting, clarifying, and deciding what's worth holding on to. Venus in Purva Falguni softens and beautifies this emotional architecture. This nakshatra, ruled by Venus itself, is connected to comfort, affection, rest, and harmony. And in the fourth house, it suggests Natalie needs her home and emotional space to feel pleasurable, elegant, and emotionally safe. She may express affection through beauty, creating soft spaces, preparing meals, curating music, or rituals that create harmony in the home. Her sense of emotional security is deeply tied to aesthetic ease and relational grace. When things look and feel aligned, her heart relaxes. From an NLP perspective, this combination suggests a strong visual and auditory-digital processing style. Mercury in Maga gives Natalie a precise, almost ceremonial quality of thought. She may learn best when ideas are grounded in structure, lineage, or symbolic meaning. Venus in Purva Falguni, meanwhile, sharpens her visual sensitivity. She processes comfort, connection, and emotional truth through how things look, flow, and feel energetically. Together, these placements suggest someone who may articulate emotions through metaphor, image, or crafted language rather than raw expression. Her chunking style is a blend, general when processing emotional themes or personal narratives, but specific when organizing her environment or managing relational tone. She may step back to see the larger emotional arc in a situation, but when it comes to creating order or comfort, she'll notice the smallest aesthetic or emotional details. Her sense of emotional control comes through this balance between overview and refinement. Natalie's attention filter in emotional and domestic life is primarily internal, with a strong overlay of others' awareness. Venus gives her deep relational sensitivity. She wants those close to her to feel loved, safe, and aesthetically cared for. But Mercury in Maga reminds her to preserve her sovereignty. She will retreat or close off emotionally if her internal dignity feels compromised. Emotional caretaking doesn't mean emotional self-sacrifice. Her motivation direction in this house leans towards. She seeks warmth, beauty, peace, and emotional recognition, especially in her home life and closest emotional bonds. She may also be subtly away from disharmony, emotional invasion, or aesthetic chaos. If something disturbs the emotional tone of her inner world, she'll either refine it or retreat. Her Venus wants ease. Her Mercury wants coherence. Altogether, Mercury in Maga and Venus in Purva Falguni in Natalie's Leo 4th house suggest an emotional life that is curated, expressive, and quietly sovereign. She feels deeply, but processes privately. She nurtures through refinement, through elegance, thoughtful words, and atmospheric care. Her NLP patterns point to someone who builds internal and external beauty with intellect, grace, and emotional presence. Not to perform, but to preserve the sacred space where she can truly feel at home. 5th house, Virgo. Natalie's 5th house, which governs creativity, self-expression, intelligence, romance, children, and how she plays with ideas and identity, falls in Virgo, with Mars placed in Chitra, a nakshatra of refined vision, artistic precision, and strategic force. The 5th house is where the personal spirit expresses itself freely, and Virgo brings discernment, structure, and attention to form. With Mars, the planet of action, drive, and assertion, in Chitra, Natalie's creative energy becomes sharp, focused, and stylistically intentional. She doesn't create or express randomly. She shapes, crafts, and constructs with flair and power. Chitra, ruled by Mars itself, is the celestial architect, linked with beauty, order, and purposeful design. Mars here gives Natalie a passionate, even fierce relationship with her creative output and ideas. She may feel a constant internal pressure to perfect what she shares, to make it visually, intellectually, or emotionally impactful. Her expression, whether through art, romance, intellect, or storytelling, likely carries clarity and confidence, but also refinement and intensity. There's an internal tension between creating what feels true and what meets her high standards of form. From an NLP perspective, Mars in Chitra supports a visual and kinesthetic processing style with bursts of auditory-digital precision. Natalie likely responds to how ideas look and feel, but also analyzes them for structure and impact. She processes creativity both viscerally and strategically, using intuition to feel her way forward, but relying on a sharp inner editor to refine and present. When engaged in artistic or intellectual flow, she can be incredibly focused, seeing the shape of things before they're fully formed. Her chunking style in the 5th house is typically specific. She notices small details in what she creates, speaks, or offers. She may revise often or express herself with a noticeable sharpness, rhythm, or symmetry. This attention to fine elements supports her creativity, but may also lead to creative tension, the feeling that nothing is ever quite finished. Still, her Mars provides persistence. She pushes through blocks with force, not just finesse. Natalie's attention filter in this domain is internally oriented. She creates from what resonates with her, not just what others expect or admire. However, Chitra adds a subtle awareness of external impact. She wants what she shares to land, to move others. There's likely a strong desire to be seen as refined, intelligent, or uniquely impactful, not flashy, but striking in a quiet, curated way. Her motivation direction in the 5th is strongly towards. She's pulled by the desire to make something excellent, beautiful, or meaningful, whether it's a project, a romantic bond, or a concept. Yet Virgo's Mars also contains a soft away-from edge. She instinctively avoids messiness, laziness, or hollow expression. She's not here for half-hearted ideas, only for what carries strength and structure. Altogether, Mars and Chitra in Natalie's Virgo 5th house gives her a creative identity that is bold, precise, and deeply self-motivated. She brings elegance and intention to everything she expresses, whether through words, design, teaching, or romance. Her NLP drives reflect someone who blends instinct with execution, beauty with structure, and inspiration with precision. She doesn't just create, she builds vision into form, one deliberate detail at a time. 6th house, Libra, Moon in Chitra. Natalie's 6th house, the domain of daily routines, self-discipline, work habits, conflict navigation, and personal refinement, lies in Libra, with the Moon placed in Chitra, a nakshatra associated with beauty, precision, and the art of structured creation. Libra here brings grace, diplomacy, and a natural desire for balance into her approach to routine and service, while Chitra, ruled by Mars, adds a layer of design-mindedness, self-containment, and emotional stylization. With the Moon, which governs mood, sensitivity, and emotional rhythm, placed in this Mars-ruled nakshatra, Natalie likely navigates her responsibilities with an instinct for both aesthetic flow and emotional precision. Chitra imbues the Moon with a flair for order and form, suggesting Natalie is not content to simply complete tasks. She wants to craft them. There may be an internal need for her daily environment to feel harmonious, clean, and intentional. Emotional satisfaction is tied to how well her outer life reflects inner structure. She may be emotionally affected by disorder, imbalance, or inefficiency, and is likely calmed by clarity, beauty, and thoughtful systems. Her workspaces and routines may feel curated, as much about emotional regulation as productivity. From an NLP perspective, this placement strongly supports a kinesthetic and visual processing style. Natalie feels her way through daily tasks, tuning into rhythm, pacing, and texture, but also needs her environment to look and feel aligned. She likely processes information through aesthetic memory and emotional resonance, remembering how things felt when they were in or out of harmony. There's an internal metronome in how she moves through the day, and when it's thrown off, her mood likely follows. Her chunking style in the 6th is generally specific. She notices details in rhythm, behavior, and tone. She may be especially sensitive to the little shifts in how others move, speak, or interact within professional or daily contexts. These micro-perceptions shape how she responds and whether she feels emotionally safe or unsettled. She likely needs time to calibrate, and she brings a sense of refinement into even mundane routines. Natalie's attention filter in this domain leans toward others, especially in collaborative or service roles. She likely absorbs the emotional tone of those she works with, often adjusting her behavior to maintain harmony. Yet Chitra also gives her an inner line of protection. She may be sensitive, but she's not easily manipulated. She observes others carefully and, when needed, creates distance through poise rather than confrontation. Her motivation direction is mostly towards. She wants to refine, improve, balance, and beautify. She's drawn to systems and roles that allow her to bring emotional intelligence into structured spaces. However, with the Moon in Chitra, she also instinctively moves away from chaos, emotional volatility, or disorder, especially if it disrupts her internal rhythm. She will work hard, but not at the cost of her emotional equilibrium. Altogether, the Moon in Chitra in Natalie's Libra 6th house gives her a refined, emotionally attuned relationship to work, service, and self-improvement. She brings a quiet elegance and internal rhythm to how she navigates responsibility, organizing both space and feeling with care. Her NLP drives reflect someone who thrives when routines are beautiful, roles are emotionally intelligent, and her inner compass is allowed to shape the flow of her outer world. 7th house, Scorpio. Natalie's 7th house, the realm of committed partnership, emotional mirroring, contracts, and intimate dynamics, lies in Scorpio, with Ketu placed in Jeshta, a nakshatra known for intensity, seniority, depth perception, and spiritual detachment. Scorpio naturally adds emotional complexity and psychological undercurrents to the relationship space, while Ketu, the south node of the Moon, brings karmic withdrawal, past life mastery, and subtle disinterest. This combination suggests that Natalie has already experienced deep, possibly intense relationship karma, and in this life, she may be learning how to relate with clarity, independence, and emotional sovereignty. Jeshta, ruled by Mercury, carries themes of responsibility, subtle control, and deep psychological insight. It's the elder star, focused on protection, strategy, and inner command. With Ketu here, Natalie likely enters partnerships with a powerful intuitive radar. She senses motives, moods, and power dynamics long before they surface. However, Ketu also brings emotional distance. She may struggle to fully anchor herself in long-term partnerships unless they meet her inner standard of depth, honesty, and energetic truth. Surface-level affection or performative connection doesn't hold her. From an NLP perspective, this placement leans toward a dissociated about auditory-digital and general chunking style in relational contexts. Natalie may analyze relationships from a quiet distance, observing tone, patterns, and underlying psychology more than reacting in the moment. She likely sorts people based on felt integrity and long-term resonance. She is capable of great loyalty and emotional devotion, but only when she feels a deep soul-level match. Otherwise, she may detach, not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Her chunking style here is mostly general. She sees themes, archetypes, and long-range emotional patterns in her partners and dynamics. She may have a gift for naming what's really happening in relationships, even when others aren't ready to see it. This can make her seem wise beyond her years in relational insight, or difficult to reach emotionally, especially when others are operating from more reactive or surface levels. Natalie's attention filter in this domain is primarily internal. She doesn't seek approval in relationships. She seeks coherence. With Ketu here, she may have a strong instinct to withdraw when dynamics feel manipulative, emotionally unsafe, or psychologically foggy. She needs truth, not just verbal honesty, but energetic transparency. If she senses emotional distortion, she'll retreat rather than engage in drama. Her motivation direction in the 7th house is subtly away from. She's instinctively repelled by superficial connection, control games, or entanglement. She values depth, but only when it's clean. There's a karmic wisdom here. She's not chasing partnership, she's clearing residue. And when she does partner, it's likely with someone who respects her autonomy, depth, and subtle emotional power. Altogether, Ketu in Jeshta in Natalie's Scorpio 7th house gives her a relationship style marked by clarity, soul memory, and inner command. She brings intuition, discernment, and emotional sovereignty to her partnerships, not out of aloofness, but from having been here before. Her NLP drives reflect a relational mindset that is strategic, perceptive, and spiritually refined. She doesn't bond quickly, but when she does, it's with intention, insight, and a quiet readiness to walk beside someone who has also done their inner work. 10th house, Aquarius, Saturn in Purvabhad. Natalie's 10th house, the domain of career, public presence, reputation, and long-term contribution, falls in Aquarius, with Saturn placed in Purvabhadrapa, a nakshatra known for visionary intelligence, spiritual depth, and disciplined idealism. Aquarius here suggests a unique, forward-thinking approach to vocation. Natalie is not drawn to conventional success for its own sake. She wants her work to serve a greater principle, elevate consciousness, or contribute meaningfully to collective evolution. With Saturn in this visionary space, her path to success is likely slow, steady, and anchored in personal integrity. She builds legacy, not just a resume. Purvabhadrapada, ruled by Jupiter, carries the energy of spiritual intensity, duality, and inner fire. Saturn in this nakshatra gives Natalie the capacity for deep ethical commitment in public and professional life. She may experience her career as a kind of long-form initiation, not simply about achievement, but about becoming. There's often a push-pull here between worldly contribution and spiritual calling. Yet Saturn provides the discipline to carry vision into structured form. She's not a dreamer without follow-through. She's a strategist of ideals. From an NLP perspective, this placement reveals a strong auditory-digital and general chunking pattern. Natalie likely views her work through systems, frameworks, and philosophies. She's not drawn to micromanagement, but prefers to operate with a long-view strategy, thinking in terms of cycles, consequences, and principles. She likely processes professional challenges through mental logic and value alignment, needing to understand the why behind the work before fully committing to it. Her chunking style in career is primarily general. She sees how various pieces of a project or system interrelate, and she often serves as a bridge between high-level vision and grounded execution. Saturn here gives her patience and realism, but also a tendency to take on too much responsibility. She may struggle with overfunctioning, particularly if she feels others lack the same level of commitment to purpose. Natalie's attention filter in the 10th is mostly internal. Her public and career-related choices are guided by private standards. She may appear calm, composed, or restrained in professional environments, but her decisions are rarely driven by status or approval. She seeks alignment over applause. Her presence in the public sphere often radiates calm authority and quiet conviction. People trust her because she is consistent, values-driven, and visibly principled. Her motivation direction is strongly towards, guided by a deep desire to serve the future, but away from mediocrity, false ideals, or ethically empty success. She has a low tolerance for systems that appear shiny but lack soul. This makes her an excellent reformer, strategist, or values-based leader, someone who helps restructure or realign institutions from the inside out. Altogether, Saturn in Purva Bhadrapada in Natalie's Aquarius 10th house makes her a purpose-driven builder of vision, someone who seeks to integrate ethics, innovation, and responsibility into everything she creates publicly. Her NLP drives reveal a career mind shaped by principle, foresight, and slow-burning mastery. She's not interested in quick wins. She's here to establish something meaningful, refined, and built to last. Overall NLP drives for Natalie. Natalie's NLP profile reveals a deeply refined, emotionally intelligent, and aesthetically attuned cognitive style, someone who processes the world through feeling, form, and pattern. Her Taurus ascendant in Rohini, along with key placements like Rahu in the 1st, Moon in the 6th, and Saturn in the 10th, suggests a nature that is perceptive, poised, and deliberate. She senses first, then decides, then acts. She learns through embodied experience and visual design, but processes life's complexity through an inner logic that is more intuitive than linear. Her processing styles are primarily kinesthetic and visual, with strong auditory-digital overlays. She feels her way through spaces, people, and tasks, Moon, Venus, Mars, while simultaneously noticing harmony, composition, and aesthetic flow, Rohini Ascendant, Venus in Purva Falguni, Mars in Chitra. However, with Mercury in Magha and Saturn in Purva Bhadrapada, she also sorts experience through principle, reason, and legacy, mapping internal order onto external chaos. Whether organizing her space or building a long-term goal, she brings a quiet, precise, emotionally informed elegance. Natalie's chunking style is both specific and general, depending on context. In daily life, relationships, and emotional environments, 3rd, 4th, 6th houses, she tends towards specificity, tracking subtle cues, tone shifts, and energetic detail. In larger purpose, career, or creative frameworks, 10th, 5th, 1st, she zooms out, seeing arcs, patterns, and moral trajectories. She can toggle between micro-refinement and meta-awareness, which makes her equally capable of managing fine processes and envisioning whole systems. Her attention filter is mostly internal, though shaped by a soft responsiveness to others. She leads from within, guided by personal values, emotional equilibrium, and aesthetic clarity, but is aware of how her presence impacts others. She is not easily swayed by opinion, but will adjust her delivery or expression for relational harmony. With Ketu in the 7th, she has likely outgrown over-attachment to external validation, anchoring instead in self-defined emotional authority. Natalie's motivation direction leans clearly towards. She is drawn to beauty, balance, emotional coherence, and meaningful contribution. She refines rather than reacts, builds rather than escapes. Yet there's also a light away from thread in her pattern. She instinctively steps back from distortion, dissonance, or falseness. If something feels misaligned, she doesn't fight. She withdraws, restores, and recenters. Her operational style is primarily procedures-based, with a graceful capacity for options when needed. She benefits from systems that feel natural, elegant, and rhythmically sound, from daily routines to long-term planning. She often creates her own procedures, intuitive rituals that guide her through the emotional, creative, or professional. Yet she maintains enough flexibility to adapt, shift, and refine without breaking her internal flow. In terms of work preference, she thrives in proximity and solo blends, emotionally present with others when aligned, but needing psychic and aesthetic space to recharge and recalibrate. Her time experience is largely through time. She holds memory deeply, sees cycles unfolding, and often thinks years ahead while grounded in the emotional present. Altogether, Natalie's NLP drives reflect a person of deep inner poise and perceptual sophistication. She learns by living, processes by refining, and moves through life not by force but by resonance. Her intelligence is structured, intuitive, emotionally literate, and aesthetically driven, designed not for speed, but for meaning, mastery, and lasting harmony.